What's up, you guys? This is RoniK95 here. Once again, we got another manga review I'm going to be doing. Today's manga review, we're going to be reviewing Inuyasha Volume 12. This is particularly another volume. Even though I've already looked back on my previous manga review on Inuyasha Volume 11, feel free to check out if you can. The link will be in the description down below if you want to check out my manga review on that. So, let's start the review on Inuyasha Volume 12. When Sanga... Yeah, that's the part. So the plot begins on here is where it starts with Sanga arrived at Naraku's area, particularly of how she brought the sword here. But when Inuyasha and Kagome had to figure out something was going on, as well as Shippo and Moroku, expecting of how Naraku has threatened somebody, as how if she's stolen, especially for what Sanga had a lot, of how, considering Naraku threatened Sango's brother's life, unless if she stole Inuyasha's blade, particularly. And then Naraku forces her to put the boomerang down, particularly. And then she expected that Kohaku is there. And then Naraku forces Sanga to hand her the blade, but then she attacks Naraku, particularly of how a concealed weapon is how this all has got to this as well. And at this point, she realized it's Naraku that is behind this. When Kilala has to overpower Naraku, but it didn't go out very well. Things is how, yeah, it's just basically of how this happened in the volume of the Inuyasha manga as well, particularly. And for this point as well, Naraku thinks that Sango's work is done, but this hasn't got to this of how this happened. And by this time, of course, that Naraku is nearby for what Inuyasha, Kagome, Moroku, and Shippo had to figure out a way of how they wanted to figure out a way that Naraku is going to kill them after all. Especially if how he could, that this moment, if Moroku could not use the hellhole in his hand, particularly, if things have been depending, when Kohaku has been attacking her own sister, Sango, particularly when if it's no use of how, when she has tried to put a stop to this, especially for how this has gone to that as well, perfectly well. And at this point, before Inuyasha, Kagome, and Moroku arrive in that one, which is almost in a whole considerable thing of how when Inuyasha realized that Naraku is forcing Kohaku to attack Sango, at this point, at this part, as Inuyasha has to defeat Naraku, but Naraku has been always using his tricks up his dark powers as well. And at this point, of course, when Inuyasha has to figure out a way of how he could destroy Naraku, to facing himself at this point, when Kagome has to save Sango's life, particularly if she's still alive, particularly when Inuyasha has to figure out a way to destroy Naraku's demons in that, and how they could figure out a way. This goes perfectly well at this point as well. When Inuyasha uses the exercising claws of steel to defeat it as well, if there was no use of how it could have almost overpowered Inuyasha as well, especially if he could have ever to defeat Naraku, if he has to figure out a way, particularly if there's any chaos, carnage of how this goes, particularly if they had to figure out a way to destroy Naraku in this one, particularly, as Naraku it's been found out that his demonic powers have been defeated, he was outraged in this, as this was long before Kagome has to use the arrow to defeat Naraku with her bow and arrow as to defeat it. But at this point, because she thought that Naraku could have killed Sango, because that's particularly, but this is how it was before disappears as well. But then Inuyasha has to protect Kagome. But it turns out that Inuyasha has found out that there's the Tetsaiga before Kohaku disappears with Naraku, because Kohaku was part of the act with Naraku in that one, especially considering of how they could have figured out a way, particularly, which is almost not in a good way. And then Kagome realized of how, for what Sango had figured out a way, particularly, she would have realized, particularly, of how the wounds on her body has been hurt, particularly. But then Sango is safe for this one. And of all at this point, of how her recollections of how Naraku's venom could have almost completely have been killing as well. So at this point, of course, of how this goes on, for Inuyasha and Kagome had to figure out a way of how they were up to something as well. Something happening in a village nearby as nightfall. If they could have, particularly of how, if they could realize about how they noticed about how the whole thing of how these inwards devouring on about something happened to the third victim, particularly whenever this happens, goes in a village, in a nearby village as well. And at this point, the Earth Boy introduced, particularly, Inuyasha could have figured out a way, particularly, that he was the man-eating demon, and how he could face the conflict, but, and at this point, of course, this all has one in it, but it wasn't, particularly, and it was the Earth Boy. At this point, particularly of how this all, because he's at base, it turns out basically he's only a half-breed in that one, and at this point particularly, of how it looks very familiar, if either of them are half-breeds as well, particularly, if they could figure out of how this all has gotten to the point out from the very beginning on this as well, if you take note about this as well, and at this point, of course, and at the whole point of how, for what, how the origins have been happened as well, when Inuyasha had figured out that he was up to something as well, particularly, as with the other villagers, particularly, of how there was something going horrible about some kind of evil family, of how it's something tormenting about the corruption as well, of how you could figure out the whole of the accountable thing of how when Inuyasha has realized that he was up to something, how when Kagome has to figure out that Inuyasha could find the real killer, especially for how this all has gotten to the point as well, for all this as well. At this point, when Inuyasha realized there's something how that happened as well, because this all has gotten to the point, when he noticed something as well, and by this time, of course, of how he would have figured out those demons brood learning about those the taste of human flesh. There's no hope. Meanwhile, of course, Kagome has wanted to figure out there was something going on about happening this as well. And there's some kind of demon that almost has caused the carnage, eating its villagers. Like, yeah, especially what this happened as well. And yeah, this all has just basically, when Kagome has to figure out a way to defeat this demon, if she could use the bow and arrow to defeat it, but it worked, particularly, but it didn't go out very well, because the demon could have almost killed it, but this Earth boy named Jineji, whatever you pronounce it, has to put away to stop this demon. And then he told Kagome to run, hurry, especially to get to safety in this chapter as well, particularly. And at this point as well, of course, basically, if they could figure out, as when Inuyasha has realized about how there's the only way of how there's a belonging place happening, of how, particularly of how fighting a real killer, particularly. But as Jinji defeated this demon with its bare hands as well, it was a miracle of how those villagers were never feared by evil, though, particularly of how these medicinal plants could treat those wounds, particularly. And at this point of how when Kagome has bidding the farewell to Jinenji after evil was defeated as well, particularly in this chapter of the manga, of how if this has ever got to any of this in the case as well. Kikyo has returned. Those villagers realize of how they have been hurt, and then she's basically a healer, as even though she has been reincarnated from the very beginning as well, until these demons arrive. But at this point, Inuyasha Moroku has these very forceful power of evil in this Victoni or something, of how if they could ever to figure out a way to find Naraku in the whole recollection, as the recollection of how this goes on, when Kikyo realized that about who is this man, but it turns out it was basically Naraku or something. How this happens, if he could recognize his Kikyo in that one, particularly in this part of the manga, which is almost a different countable thing as well. And Naraku realized that if Kikyo was still alive, that she has been died on the clutching Shikan jewel 50 years ago, but she has been reincarnated. Inuyasha, Kilala, Kagome, Sango, Moroku were figuring out a way of how they were on the search of something happening in the Cave of Evil, particularly. Something dark and menacing is going on inside as well, particularly. Yeah, because, it's just basically of how they figure out a way of what they were up to as well. And at this point, that, of course, when Naraku has realized of how the fulfillment of how this happens, of how when Kikyo felt of a great vortex of evil as well. Well, this how it happens as well. Something happened. Of the danger goes of how it's happened to this guy's soul. At this point, of course, Kagome and Sango and Shippo figure out a way of something that's very powerful inside of the cave. Is whenever Inuyasha and Moroku were up to something of how this happened as well, particularly of what you see in that one as well, particularly at this countable thing as well, of how that happened as well. And yeah, there are some demons to encounter to face to the battle as well. If ever Inuyasha Moroku has to figure out a way to destroy those demons that are inside that cave, when Inuyasha has to use the Tetsaiga to fight the demon on that one as well, because this all has particularly for the fulfilledness. Sango and Kagome could figure out a way of how this all has gotten into the other case as well, particularly. But this was before Kikyo told Kagome if Inuyasha is inside. At this point, Kagome realized that where did Kikyo came from? If Sango think that if Kikyo is the reincarnation that Kagome is, but when she told Sango to stay with Shippo, and as well as Sango tells Kilala to go with Kagome, as how this happened. These dead souls happening, or if they were trying to get out, down where the evil aura happening in the cave, as Inuyasha has been battling this demon in that one particularly. And at this point, of course, for how this happened, when Moroku could figure out a way of how they could defeat this monster in this cave as well. If Inuyasha could have overpower it with his Tetsaiga in that one particularly, as all to the whole thing. As Moroku realized that Kikyo is there, Inuyasha could recognize it, but the dead souls rushed out of how she could have able to move her body, of how this happened, but then it causes her to fall through, as Moroku notices it as well, because, you know, it's just basically of how this happened. And then Inuyasha realize how did Kikyo came, as when Kagome is up to something, what's happening as well. And then she notices how someone carries the Shikon shard nearby, as whenever Naraku was up to something evil, as how his demons is always more part into the carnage as well. And yeah, Inuyasha has to figure out a way to stop this demon in that one as well. So that's the plot in Volume 12 of the Inuyasha manga, though, because I just wanted to come by for a manga like Inuyasha. This all has gotten very good, as well as how it progresses as well, where it continues off after Volume 11 as well, especially in the manga as well. We got some characters as well, because we all know Naraku is in that one as well, and particularly every other character's how this happened in the manga as well. I mean, the art was very fascinating, because that's why I have wanted to come by of how I appreciate the art style of Rumiko Takahashi whenever she created the manga like this as well, how you wanted to come by for this accordingly, just how I could come by for that. The story is very well written, and overall, I just wanted to come by for a manga whenever I come by on how I've been talking about the Inuyasha manga like this, because I just wanted to know for this. It's gotten very good, and it gets almost as better as most manga I have as well, in general as well. This has gotten to the case of how you wanted to come by for a manga like Inuyasha, is that I just wanted to realize for this, because this is all new for me, because I just wanted to get to the whole thing of my curiosity of how I would come by for a manga like Inuyasha. That's why, because it's getting very good as well. And my score for the manga, I'm going to give it a 10 out of 10. And to this conclusion, this all has got to the curiosity of how I have been rereading the Inuyasha manga volumes, because it just gets very better and better, because I just have a feeling particularly of how I wanted to come by on how I've been explaining about the manga volumes of the Inuyasha manga, as how I wanted to get to my whole point for this as well. So that's going to be it for my manga review on Inuyasha Volume 12 for today's manga review. Thank you for watching. Be sure to click on the subscribe button. Be sure to subscribe to my channel, especially if you're new to my channel, because I've been literally getting into the Blu-ray now from world cinema, Ralph Bakshi films from the 70s and 80s, Italian cinema from Ruggiero Deodato to Dario Argento, and I'm also getting into merchandise from Vivzipop, you know, from Has-Been Hotel to Hell of a Boss as well. And I'm also getting into Metal Pat albums from CD to vinyl records as well, from like new wave of British heavy metal, Norwegian black metal, as well as death metal, thrash metal, a lot of good stuff as well. And I'm also getting into the albums that are part of my favorite band's discography, from Kiss, AC/DC, and Ghost as well, because I've been literally getting into the discography, that's why as well. And I'm also getting into patches for my Battle Jacket, because I've been literally getting into the Battle Jacket update videos as well, because I got a different types of hobbies and collecting in general, not just collecting anime, manga, video games, and gunpla, that's why. Because I have a different types of hobbies as well, because it's very more different as well. And I'm also getting into metal concert vlog videos as well also. And I'm also getting into a lot of difference as well. Smack the like button if you enjoyed the video. Hit the notifications bell button. Be sure to get notified also as well for more latest updates. Check out my anime plan or analyst because I've been getting into Letterboxd, that's why. Let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. Let me know your suggestions or your ideas as well. And that's all I have what I got for today. And keep it otaku for this manga review because this has been a long overdue for this brand new video, that's why. And ta-ta for now for this video. This is Rurouni K95 saying thank you for watching my video, and I'm glad you liked it. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope to see you soon for the next video. Be sure to stay safe and stay healthy, and have a great day. This is Rurouni K95 signing off. Thank you for watching my video, and I will see you soon for more videos that I got on plan for what's in store, for what we have, for whenever I've been doing something that is long overdue. That's why. Take care for this. Stay tuned for more videos that I got them planned. Take care. Hope to see you soon. Bye.